let's bring out the big guns. Today's piece is for the Transformer fans and comes to us from JoeTeanby. It depicts the massive city-sized Transformer Metroplex just completing his transformation with lots of debris and dust falling from him. I'd never done a coloring project of anything like Metroplex, so I needed to collect a fair number of reference images, both for color references and for color location. I'm a Generation 1 kind of guy by default, so I wanted to use colors from the old cartoon, which meant pulling up the episode that introduced Metroplex, 5 Faces of Darkness Part 5. I also grabbed some color reference shots for rocks as well. One of the biggest problems I encountered with coloring this image was the sheer scale of the image. I don't know this for a fact, but based on the size and resolution of the image, it seems that JoeTeanby crafted this image for print, like use in a poster or as a comic cover. What this meant for me was I was working with a huge image that really taxed my system. If I wanted to, I could actually use the image to do an animated coloring video in 4K resolution, and I would still need to scale the images down to fit on screen. Just for reference sake, the Photoshop file for this project weighed in at 2/3 of a gigabyte in size. Seems kind of appropriate for a project involving Metroplex, doesn't it? Metroplex first appeared in the Generation 1 cartoon in the 3rd season. It's a little bit of a point of a debate exactly what his first real appearance is. See, until 5 Faces of Darkness Part 5, Metroplex was trapped in his city configuration, unable to transform. But there were multiple scenes that took place inside of him during Parts 2, 3, and 4 of the story. It wasn't until the later half of Part 5 that his transformation cog was installed, and he was able to transform in order to battle his city-scaled rival, Trypticon. So, Metroplex was introduced in Part 2 of 5 Faces of Darkness, or Part 5? Semantics. The original cartoon gave Metroplex very little personality or character, treating him more like a loyal dog than a character. Though, the time Starscream stole his eyes and he went nuts is amusing to think about. I mean, the dude is literally a living city, and the Autobots can't prevent him from being robbed? Of his eyes, no less? I mean, come on, you know you have screwed up when the city you are in is pissed at you. Now, I'm going to be somewhat uber nerdy here for a bit, so just fair warning. But there is a little tiny voice in the back of my mind whenever I look back at stuff like Metroplex, and I can't help but think about the real-world demands of something like Metroplex, actually existing, and then doing, 99% of everything we actually see him do on screen, and then 100% of the stuff we don't see him do on screen, but he actually had to have done. Let me explain. According to most sources, Metroplex is 800 meters tall. That is 800 meters. Okay? As a comparison, Optimus Prime is generally considered to stand about 10 meters and to weigh around 5 tons. Now, let's upscale that to Metroplex's size. So we're going to upscale Prime by a factor of 80. Now, here's the annoying part. Weight doesn't increase in a linear fashion at the same rate that scale does. As the overall dimensions double, the weight will quadruple. So as an example, if Prime is 5 tons at 10 meters tall, if we double that so that he is 20 meters tall, he would actually be 125 tons. So, following that, Metroplex would weigh in at 2,500,000 tons. That is over 25 times the weight of the USS Gerald Ford, which is presently the largest aircraft carrier on Earth. and now I have this incredibly amusing image of Metroplex going in for a cannonball dive somewhere. Like, probably in the middle of the Indian Ocean, maybe. Hey, JoeTeanby, draw an image of that. I would love to color that particular image. I suspect it would be a bit like that scene in Iron Giant, where the giant jumps into the lake and proceeds to produce a tidal wave. But yeah, at the size Metroplex is suggested to be, he either uses some sort of material that is ultra light, yet still strong enough to provide sufficient armor to pretty much tank ICBMs, or he uses some sort of technology to reduce his overall weight. Given the science fiction nature of Transformers, either is reasonable. Still, there is the thought about how exactly he moves around. Like, the second time we see him, he has traveled from his home base, which is somewhere in Washington State, to Moscow, Russia, in order to retake St. Basil's Cathedral from Trypticon. Remember that Washington State is on the west coast of the North American continent, while Moscow is, well, it's basically as far from Washington State as you can get, while still staying at that latitude. So Metroplex had to travel around 5,200 miles over one of the largest bodies of water on the planet to tell Trypticon to put the cathedral back. So yeah, he basically had to fly. Which brings to mind a wonderful mental image of some poor Soviet radar operations officer checking his screen and seeing what can only be described as a shopping mall flying overhead at, I don't know, about 50 miles an hour, I guess? I mean, how would that even actually show up on the radar? So, there we have Metroplex transforming for battle. The line art was provided by JoeTeanby, and it was an interesting challenge coloring an image this large. Be sure to check out his DeviantArt profile at the link below. Thanks, JoeTeanby. If you enjoy this video, be sure to check out my other videos. If you want to help me out, you can support me on Patreon for as little as $1. You can also follow me on social media at the links below in the description. If you're an artist and are interested in having me take a shot at coloring some of your work, feel free to drop me a line on Twitter or Facebook.